This is Inside Indiana Business Radio for Monday, September 9th, 2024. I'm Marek Mazurek. Washington-based Cedron Technologies is nearing completion of an $80 million facility at Curtis Creek Dairy in northwest Indiana that can convert cow manure into clean water and fertilizers. Construction on the facility began in 2022, and the company is adding nearly 40 manufacturing jobs that are slated to be filled by the end of the year. Stanley Janicki, Chief Commercial Officer of Cedron, said he hopes the process will be revolutionary in agricultural waste management.
It takes the digestate, the manure that goes through the dairy digester, and instead of going into the lagoon or onto the fields, it takes that digestate and goes into our technology. And from there, we'll produce clean, gorgeous water that we can discharge back to the farm. They can irrigate with it or whatever else is constructed for them. And then 2 different types of dry, solid organic fertilizer, and then a liquid organic fertilizer. That, of course, go into displacing fossil fuel-derived fertilizers. So it's very, very exciting. From an environmental standpoint, I think it's a great opportunity for the farm and for us.
Janicki said the process allows Cedron to make unique fertilizers that it can sell into organic markets at a premium and help lower costs for organic consumers. The University of Notre Dame is touting new records when it comes to research funding for the last fiscal year. The university says it submitted over 1,300 proposals for external funding, totaling just over $1 billion, the first time it has surpassed that mark. Additionally, the university received a record 829 funding awards that amounted to $223 million. That is the 4th consecutive year that Notre Dame has passed the $200 million mark. The majority of the funding, over $134 million, came from federal agencies such as the National Science Foundation, which awarded over $46 million. The university said $23 million came from private foundations and $20 million came from industry partners. Over the last year, Notre Dame received new funding from the CHIPS and Science Act to support the onshoring of semiconductor manufacturing. The university's College of Science also landed a grant from the Army Research Office to conduct quantum computing research. Notre Dame Law School's Exoneration Clinic was awarded a $3 million grant from New Mexico's Minister of Foreign Affairs earlier this year to administer a program for the defense of Mexican nationals in criminal matters in the U.S. From the number one source for Indiana business news, this is Inside Indiana Business Radio.
Indiana, your bold future starts here. IBJ Media, Inside Indiana Business, and the Indiana Economic Development Corporation invite you to the Engage Indiana series, presented by CareSource, Indiana University, and Old National Bank. With an unrelenting focus on growing Indiana's economy, our Engage Indiana events take place in every region of the state. Discover when we'll be in your area at ibj.com/engage.
Indiana state agencies collectively spent $5 million on travel during the 2024 fiscal year. That's about $45,000 more than was reported the last fiscal year, and most of that money went to lodging and airfare. State data shows travel costs have rebounded since falling to less than $1 million in 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic. Some officials, however, say those numbers aren't yet accurate. Ron Green, a spokesman for the Lieutenant Governor's office, said there are errors in the office's international travel card activity that could show inflated costs. Green told the Capital Chronicle that a trip Department of Agriculture personnel took to India was not converted from rupees to dollars, making the actual amount spent much lower. The favored chain of state employees when they stay in a hotel or motel? Holiday Inn. The Indiana Senate Democratic Caucus spoke out Monday against the controversial sale of U.S. Steel to Japan's Nippon Steel, as President Joe Biden is said to be considering blocking the move. In a news release, the Democratic Caucus said, quote, "The transfer of U.S. industries into foreign hands without ironclad labor protections is not only a risk to our workers, it is a direct threat to the stability of our local economies." Indiana's Gary Works is U.S. Steel's largest manufacturing plant, according to the company's website. That site has more than 4,300 employees per Fox Business. The announcement by Indiana Democrats comes after reports last week that the Biden administration is preparing to block the $14.9 billion sale to Nippon Steel. U.S. Steel CEO David Burritt has warned that his company would have to close mills if Nippon Steel is unable to acquire it. A neighborhood full of early 20th century homes in Fort Wayne was just named to the National Register of Historic Places. The Shawnee Place Historic District, which sits in the Fairfield neighborhood a short drive south from downtown Fort Wayne, was bestowed the honor by the National Park Service. The Register of National Historic Places recognizes properties worthy of preservation due to their historic character. Shawnee Place has almost 250 homes in a 3-block radius. Most of them were built from 1903 to 1940 by Wildwood builders of Fort Wayne, though one house dates back to 1872. The neighborhood was home to many working-class people who worked at the nearby Packard organ factory, the city said in a news release. Auto dealership leader Ryan Rohrman is this week's guest on the Business and Beyond podcast hosted by Gary Dick, presented by PNC. A weekly conversation with high-profile Hoosiers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. Available now from your favorite podcast provider. I'm Mark Mazurek for Inside Indiana Business Radio On Demand.